Hey, what's going on? You're now tuned in to the PVD Horror Podcast. I'm Brandon and I'm joined by my co-host Dave. And today we have a special guest, writer, director, and he's known for visual effects, Michael Schwartz. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
No
Uh,
problem. So usually when we start off the podcast, we want to talk like the history of, our guests getting into horror. So as a horror fan, we all have a crazy story on how we got into horror. Can you share your first experience watching horror films with us?
If you like all things horror and want to get the best horror news, interviews, and reviews,
Like, subscribe, and ring that bell to follow us and satisfy all your horror needs.
well, I feel like for me, it was a bit of an unusual entry into it because my dad managed a number of video stores like in the city I lived in.
Okay.
So he was always bringing home movies just to watch. He would actually he would actually like record the movies he
oh
liked.
yeah,
He wouldn't
Yeah.
never keep them, but he would record them and. Uh, the big thing with him was he was always if it was like a movie that was like PG or PG-13, he'd be like, "Oh, maybe you could watch this one." So I by the age of 4 or 5, I had already been watching like House, Troll, for instance,
Okay.
was one of the
yeah,
early
yeah,
ones.
yeah.
House, The Gate, Monster Squad, all of those. He was like, "These are good. You can watch these," because I was really into monsters.
Mm.
And then it was about age 6 where he's like, I just kept bugging him and bugging him to see something a bit more scary, a bit more scary. And so he's like, all right, let's do Poltergeist. Thinking, oh, that'll be too scary for him and he'll be over it. That's what he told my mom. And it didn't work. At that point, I was like, I need more. Give me more, please. So Poltergeist was really the one that just launched that love of horror. And then it was like, what else can I get my hands on that he'll let
Mm.
me see? And if he wouldn't let me see it, I'd go to my friend Russell's house, and it was like, what did your dad rent this weekend? Oh, Texas Chainsaw, cool, let's watch it. Basket Case, let's do it.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite subgenre within horror?
um, I. I really think I change, like I feel like from decade to decade it's
Mm.
like 1 second it's like I'm just into Italian horror.
Yeah,
Right now, I'm on such a kid horror kick, but it might be because I've been in that
sure.
space, like
Yeah.
creatively. So I'm, yeah, I don't know. I definitely think anything with monsters, rubber monsters, is just my go-to. Like good, feel good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I love it.
So yeah,
Yeah. So I noticed that you're a big comic book fan.
yeah.
We'll have to send you out one of our comic books because we just got done completing like a Kickstarter and everything for our comic book. We had a set with Wish I View and Nowhere Comics, which consist of Jameson King and Vicky Smalls. The title of our comic is The Black Apple, which is a horror anthology comic. So it's kind of cool. It's myself and Dave's ideas with Jameson and Vicky's illustrations of everything. So it's kind of cool. It's going to be put together. Should be coming soon. So for everybody that supported us, definitely we appreciate you. But we're gonna have to send it to you to kind of put your stamp of approval on it. So think
Oh man, so
see what you think.
when was the Kickstarter for it?
It just ended what was it? In the
Some point.
middle of August.
Yeah, yeah. Some point this
Yeah.
past month.
I have to admit I'm so new to the whole Kickstarter world. I've done like a bunch. Like
Hmm.
I've supported like probably 8, I'd say, but I'm like
Okay.
so new to it. Like the last one I supported would have been the Joe Jusko one. I don't know if you know Joe Jusko, the artist. He painted a lot of like Marvel trading cards.
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
So he released a big book. So I'm kind of new to it. Like, and I'm
Yeah.
realizing it's like a whole community and stuff, and I feel like I've missed out on so much. So I apologize for missing out on yours.
Oh, it's okay.
Ah, no
But the
problem.
fact that you guys are like horror fans, I have to check it out. Like
Yeah.
I'm getting sent a bunch of stuff now, just like links to people's stuff, and I'm like, gotta order, gotta.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Oh,
Yeah, I'd
that's
love to read
amazing.
it.
You also made your own comic book and your first writing debut with Armored. Can you tell us a little bit about that comic book?
Yeah, for a while I've wanted to get into writing comics. I really had no idea how anyone breaks into it. I thought you had to be, an artist or whatever, or I didn't know how writers got in. It was
Mm.
kind of an unknown to me. And then writing movies is really challenging, I have to say. Like I've written a lot of feature films that just haven't been made. producers will hire me and the director I work with to write movies, and then they can't get the funding. So,
Okay.
we get paid to write it, but then it doesn't go anywhere. And it's like super discouraging. And it wasn't that any of those films that I had written would have been good as comic books, but I just felt like I want to do something that I can see from beginning to end. That's my vision, that I'm not co-writing with anyone. And then this idea like popped in my head years ago. And so it's a multi-part story. I'm going to try and make it as short as possible, but basically it started with my comics being stolen. I had every comic book from my childhood stolen from my garage, including, it wasn't just comic books. I had posters, which included horror movie posters, just posters I collected since I was a kid, posters from my dad's video store, everything stolen. I had winter gear stolen, you name it. And I kind of decided at that point, I'm done with comics. I was so upset from losing them. Like it was something I had since I was like 4 or even 3. My dad was buying me comics. So I said, I'm not buying anymore. And literally within a few months, I was like, I gotta get my Hulks back. I gotta get my Silver Surfers back. I gotta get my Spawns back. And so as I started doing that, I was like, man, I really am feeling like I need to tell a story in comics, because I was reading so much. I was almost reading more comics than watching movies at that point. I also had a little baby, so it was hard to watch a full movie. I was watching movies in like little snippets. And so the more I read, the more I wanted to write a comic. And I had this idea that kind of came around the same time. Do you remember the old show Visionaries?
Yeah.
Like little toys with holograms and stuff. Or there was a toy line called Supernaturals that had holograms. And I kind of came up with this idea of like a knight, and he had a ghost as a friend. And it just kind of like snowballed from there after watching Visionaries. And I was like, this is like a comic book. I got to make this a comic. And for years, I just was like, what do I do? What do I do? And it was after the last film I had made, basically the last film I had written. I was doing a remake of The Gods Must Be Crazy. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
With the pop bottle. We were hired to write an animated remake of The Gods Must Be Crazy. And the company that was co-producing it went bankrupt. And me and the director were just like, this sucks. It keeps happening. Every movie we write, just either something goes wrong, a company goes bankrupt, it just nothing gets made. And he went back into animation directing. And I was like, well, I'm going to get a job as production manager again. And I went into VFX. But at the same time, I started like figuring out structures of comic books and like how I wanted this comic to be told. And I was like, Armored has to be a comic. And that was basically the genesis. And that was 2021 that I wrote the first issue of Armored. Okay. So it's been like a 2-year process, really.
Is that it behind you?
Is that the first? This is it right here, the first issue. This is a reader copy that they had printed. This was kind of surprised they sent it to me, the publisher, but this was printed specifically for R.L. Stine.
Okay.
I did like a run for him because when I'm sure we'll get into it at a later point, but when I'd done the Zombie Town, I'd met him, and I just reached out to him on Instagram because I don't know him. I don't have like a relationship with him, but I reached out to him on Instagram being like, maybe he'll respond. And he did. And I just said, hey, would you mind reading my comic? And he literally just gave me his address and said, Michael, send it here. And I was like, shit, wow. I don't have a copy. I only have PDFs, but I'm not gonna tell Stine, hey buddy, I don't have a printed copy. Can you read a PDF? No, it's R.L. Stine. Get him a goddamn copy.
Yeah,
so they had to print a bunch of issues just so that we could get him a copy. Yeah.
That was cool because I seen his review. He had nothing but good words to say about the comic. So I definitely can't wait to check it out.
Yeah, I was really stoked to get those words as well. Really, really excited. I was scared. I'm not going to lie. He ghosted me for a while. So I was like, oh, man.
Oh, man. So like I said earlier, you have worked on a few projects like The Walking Dead, the Dead City and What We Do in the Shadows, where you focused on the visual effects. How was it like working on these projects?
Yeah, it's cool. It's weird being on that side of things. You know, like I'll admit something to you. I started my visual effects career, I'd say, because I've been in animation for a long time, like 10 years. So visual effects was kind of new to me. And when I got in, they put me on Moon Knight as a production manager on that. And the way it works is visual effects houses each get a piece of an episode or a piece of a movie. So you're really only seeing snippets. And I was put on Moon Knight, and it was like this hero shot, like from episode 3, like a hero sequence. And I was like, oh, fuck, I don't know what I'm doing at all. Like, I don't know how to run this show. Because as a production manager, you have to run it. You have to like support the VFX supervisor. I didn't know what I was doing. So they were like, okay, we also have this other movie. It's a SpongeBob movie. And we're gonna put you on that because the other guy hates it so much. So they swapped us out, and I was like, oh, thank God, I'm getting to learn visual effects through animation because it's a live action SpongeBob movie. Um, and so it's cool to see that side of things because it really is like it's creative, but it's very, very detail oriented stuff. Like, you know, you got to get that blood splatter right, you know.
Yeah.
On what we do in the shadows. So I will say we primarily were responsible for, you know, when what's his name, Colin, the energy vampire.
Yes.
He has like a shrunken head, or sorry, he has a baby body. He like gets resurrected as a baby, and he has like a giant head on him. We did the head replacement, the visual effects company I was working for. So we were doing all of that stuff. So it was just jokes every day. It was just like, you know, no, his head's too big, make it a bit smaller, you know. I think the most fun I had though was working on Dead City, just because the shots that were coming in. Have you guys seen that season yet? Have you watched it at all?
Not yet. I haven't checked it out. Have you, Dave?
Yeah, no, I haven't either. It's on my list.
Yeah,
I'll
I've only seen the like 2 episodes that I worked on, so I'm but as you guys, but the zombies that were coming in, I was just like, this is like, you know, they have so many nods to other horror movies too. So I'd be like in the meeting being like, oh shit, that's a Return of the Living Dead zombie.
Okay.
Like, shut up, we don't care. So yeah, it's cool. It's just a different side because there's no story, right? You don't have any idea what the story is. It's all like, okay, we can see a green guy. You know, they'd have guys in green holding up some of these puppet zombies.
Yeah.
It'd be like, remove him, or anyway. So yeah, very different situation, I'd say.
That probably makes it easier to just be able to focus on making it the best possible shot rather than worrying about story and how this fits into the movie as a whole or the show as a whole. Like, you can just focus on making it the best possible looking shot you can.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's really good. My particular job is really just supporting the artists and making sure they can get it done in time. And if they can't, we have to like get more artists. So it's always a struggle. I'm kind of like the manager of them all, you know, everything that happens.
Nice. So now you also worked on ABCs of Death 2.5. You did the segment of with the M. What was that like working on that anthology film?
You know, there so many times in my career I've been like, I quit, I'm done, I'm not going to be creative anymore. And almost every few years that happens. And that came at a time where I was working at an animation studio, and I just got kind of inspired by all the artists I was working with. And I was like, man, all these people, they, you know, they come in, do their job, and then they go home, and they like the one guy was doing a Marvel comic, and I was like, I'm doing nothing with my life. I need to. So when that opportunity came up for ABCs of Death 2, I was just like, I felt like I had to do it, and immediately I thought of Manure. I don't know if you've seen my segment at all. It's the monster one.
Yep.
And my aunt, she has a farm, or had a farm. She's since passed, but I was like, I know I could make a cool movie at that farm. It's fucking creepy in those barns, you know, like with the cobwebs and stuff. And so it's just like quickly gathering like a team and getting it done. It was, you know, low budget. And I got a guy, an effects artist from the Hannibal show. to come on
Okay.
and do the manure monster. And he was like just using bits from Hannibal. So like you'll see when he's digging in the manure pile, that's like real manure. And inside of it is like heads and limbs from
Yeah.
Hannibal, the Hannibal TV show.
Oh, that's
Okay.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that was that experience. And it was kind of just, I don't know if you know, people listening or you guys remember, it's just voting, right? You just vote who should win to be in the actual movie. And then they had like 534 entries, and there was just so many that they liked that they were like, well, let's make another movie out of the best entries. And I just got lucky that the producers chose mine. So
Okay.
I forgot that that's what the premise of those films were. I mean, I've seen them, but I forgot it was like a voting process. That's
yeah,
actually
just
feels
for
like
one.
something they should continue just for
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Just for
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
because in ABCs of Death 1, it's T. And I don't remember who won. It may have been Toilet, I think, and it was like an animated toilet one.
I
Like,
feel like I remember that.
yeah, yeah. And my buddy Chris Nash, who I'm sure you guys have to speak to him eventually. He has a film coming out soon.
Okay.
I think through Shudder. He did T is for Thread, and I think I was inspired by him too. He's so talented, and he's finally doing a feature film. So
Awesome.
M, yeah, there was like, I forget which one won for M, but it's a cool experience. Like I'm
Yeah.
shocked that they never did ABCs of Death 3. And
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so many awesome filmmakers involved with the actual films. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be cool if they bring that back, you know, because we were just talking like a couple weeks ago, just how they've been bringing back the VHS films, you know. So I think they definitely should bring ABCs of Death back. So
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't go wrong with the short, like the
no.
anthologies and the short films, and just highlighting as many like up and coming film creators as possible. You can't go wrong with that.
Now you wrote the screenplay for No Malone and the new R.L. Stine's Zombie Town. Back in August 2022, it was announced that Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase were casted in this film. I need to know what went through your head when you found out they were going to be in your film that you wrote.
Okay, well, first, I think you're very brave for bringing up both films in this podcast. No,
Yeah.
just because they're both kid films. So you have to
Yeah.
like, that's the first thing I want to get out there. They're both kid films. Like No Malone is for a younger generation, even more so than Zombie Town. Okay, to answer your question though, it was a very strange process. I came on board a few months after the director, who I co-write like everything with. He was hired, and it was a very quick turnaround. It was like, we need a script in a few weeks kind of thing. Like the script we have isn't working. We can't, I don't know the details. I don't want to like say any specifics, but I know they were having trouble getting it going, getting cast attached. And so I was actually hired just to write a few pages, just to fix the opening. And I was like, I have to do more. I can't let you direct this movie without us like just at least coming up with a through line for this movie, coming up with a story. And so I just agreed to do it. And we redid the whole movie.
Okay.
Like rewrote it in, I think it was a week and a half. It was very quick. They had to shoot in like a month, I think. And they still had no cast attached. So within like 2 to 3 weeks, I was hearing things like, oh, you know, like Kim Coates from Sons of Anarchy wants to be in it. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. What? This is a low budget Canadian movie. What's happening? Like, how is and then I think it was like the day before a press release went out that Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase were attached. And I was like, this is crazy. We actually in the movie have a joke about Ghostbusters. And I was like, this is so weird. So it's surreal. I have to say, very, very surreal. Like I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of like kind of high profile names. Like when I worked in animation, I got to go to all the voice records. With the director I worked with, Peter Lepeniotis, for The Nut Job. I don't know if you're familiar with that animated movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I got to work with Liam Neeson. I got to work with Maya Rudolph. Like I went to every voice recording with him. This is before we were writing partners. So it was, you almost like, it's like a fog, to be honest with you. I don't it's like surreal thinking about it. Like I still think back, like, wow, Dan Aykroyd read lines that I wrote or what Peter wrote, you know. So it's very surreal. It's I feel very fortunate to have like had that opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the other big part of this is that you're attached to a project that has ties to R.L. Stine, who has introduced so many of us to like the genre. You know, and I know you said you did get to meet him in person. Like, what was the interaction like while making the film? Was there any interaction during the filmmaking process?
Okay, well, here's the funny thing is as I started writing the script with Peter or doing our rewrite, he said he tells me it's based on an R.L. Stine book, and I was like, wait, what? Like the R.L. Stine? So I didn't even know that at that point. And the script that we were working from was so far off the original book.
Okay.
Because I immediately got the book and was like, oh, it's just a novella. It's very small. It's very simple. It's basically they watch the movie, town turns into zombies, they get chased, and then there's this weird meta ending. I won't spoil it for anyone, but it's very meta. And that's kind of what R.L. Stine does best, right? Is these endings. He does these great like twist endings. And so that was that portion of it. But then the plan was for him to actually fly to set and do like a small part on the movie. And we'd written a scene for him, but he couldn't come for one reason or another. And so we had to do something over Zoom because he really wanted to do it a bit. So we've written this strange little ending that ends, it's now in the credits. It's like a post-credit scene.
Oh, okay.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate that we couldn't shoot our original ending because we had this like great meta ending with him. So we had to shoot something very quick in the last hour of shooting at like 4 a.m. You'll see it's very strange little ending. It's super bizarre. But we met him on Zoom. That was how I met him. So I've never met him in person. I met him on Zoom. I was like, you know, stay out of the basement. You remember that one? That was the bullshit. That's
I got it behind me somewhere.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
That's the book that got me into Goosebumps. Like I missed the first one, but the second one, I still have my original copy of that one, and I was just like, you know, thank you, you know, like that. You're a huge, because I was so into horror by that point. Goosebumps just allowed me to be into it at school, you know.
Yeah.
And so I just thanked him for that, and he's like, oh, it's nothing. He's so down to earth. He's just such a nice guy, and it's such a nice man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stay Out of the Basement or Monster House. I can't remember which one was my first one, but it was definitely one of those two. And yeah, that just, you know, like you said, like being able to read and have horror related things while you're at school felt like such a like treat to yourself. So oh man, I digested all of those.
Yes.
I remember
Scholastic Book Fair.
Yeah, but exactly. When those came, it was like, it's Goosebumps time, Mom. Give me some money. Say Cheese and Die. I remember just reading in class. Being like, this is the best. There's skeletons on the front, and I'm reading it in class.
Yeah. So I saw a cool post that you made recently on Twitter of your kids, and they invited their friends to go see Zombie Town. And you had a comment about it being like it's intended to be a gateway horror film. So I love that because we talk about that from time to time, just like about films that were gateway horror for us and things like that. So had you already introduced your kids to some gateway horror films? And if so, which ones do you go to for them?
Okay.
They're rather young, right?
Yeah. Well, my son is young. Okay, so it's interesting. My daughter's 8 and my son is 5, but he just turned 5. So my son is totally into monsters. I think it's obvious where he gets it from. My daughter, zero interest, doesn't want anything to do with it. But what happens is we basically have, you know, our living room is where they watch TV. And so my son will be like, I want to watch a monster movie. And he forces my daughter to watch them. So last year, I was like, I think last year at Halloween was the first time they had started to watch a few more gateway horror films or entry-level horror films. But that summer, so of 2022, they watched Monster Squad for the first time. And then they watched it again at Halloween, and I think he had it on repeat almost every other day or every other day. He was really into it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, well, let's try a few more because he wanted to watch more. We did Troll. Troll
Okay.
to me, that scared me as a kid. They didn't
Yeah.
get scared. I was like, that little girl's so creepy when she gets the ball. I think my daughter was a bit freaked out by it, but you know, it's not to me. I don't know. Maybe it's because I was watching it on Blu-ray. It feels so bright. When on VHS, it felt dark and
Yeah.
so I should have put on the VHS tape. I kind of regret that now. So we did Troll, Monster Squad, and then a neighbor. I dress as a killer clown every year,
Okay.
you know, just like the costume from the Spirits.
Yeah.
And so I scare all the kids with that. And one of the neighbors saw it on TV. It was playing on some Canadian channel, and they said it that like the next day. And my son was like, "Well, I want to watch it." So I was like, "All right, let's watch that." So those are the three from last year. I think this year we're gonna do a few more. Like, oh, I also showed them Watcher in the Woods. You remember that? That's a Disney entry level horror film.
We literally just had someone on
Yeah.
here last episode talking about that film.
No
and
way.
I was looking for it. I wanted to see if it was on Disney Plus, but I didn't. I gotta look again. I think I put the wrong title in.
I think it pops up at Halloween time, or I think it did I don't know, Blu-ray from like the Disney Club. So yeah, that's a great one. I'm trying to think of some others. I know I want to show them. I'm gonna. There was a. I think I might show them The Gate this year.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know if my daughter can handle it. My son probably could. And what was it? House 2. I want to show them House 2. House is probably fine as well, but House 2 is so cheesy that I know they won't be too scared of that.
So now you're a big fan of Troll, right? So do you like Troll too?
Yes, for a lark. Like my wife and I loved going to those screenings when they did them with Best Worst Movie.
Yeah.
Before we had kids and they were doing those like double features. Oh, those were the best. I don't know if you ever got to one of those.
We actually had a screening for Troll 2 a couple 2 months ago now.
Yeah.
So fun seeing it with a crowd.
Yeah. We had just an amazing turnout, and everybody was so amped up for it, and like clapping at all the best parts and laughing. It was a great time.
Oh, it's been ages since I've done that. The last one I went to, there was like masks. They all gave us masks. It was like
nice.
Rue Morgue was giving them away, so it was cool. Yeah.
Nice.
That's awesome. See, I thought you were gonna go with some classic Canadian gateway horror, like My Bloody Valentine or something like that. You know.
yeah. You're Canadian. No, my kids are actually they're Canadian and American. They have dual. Yeah, my wife's American, so I have to show them some American and some Canadian.
Yeah.
Peanut Butter Solution is one that's Canadian, I think. Yeah, which I think is creepy enough. I don't know.
Yeah. So, we were recently talking about R.L. Stine, and we were talking about like, you know, different novels and, you know, other like teen horror authors and like different novels that we'd love to see adapted. I want to ask you that question because you've already done one. Is there an R.L. Stine, like either Goosebumps or some of his teen novels or another children's author that you would love to adapt?
That's a great question. You know what? There's definitely lots of R.L. Stine books. I will tell you this. I have been in talks to write other R.L. Stine books. So
there you
go. We've written. Peter and I wrote a treatment for one that's more for teens. Like
nice.
It's hard because I think Peter, you know, Peter's an animation director. Like that's what he worked at Pixar. He directed animation, but then he got to be like a director. When I say directed animation, like he you know, that's literally just directing like scenes of animation, not directing the movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nut Job, that was his first film directing, and then No Malone was his second film directing. And then with Zombie Town, it was like we're stuck in this like PG world a bit. And so at points we'd be like, let's throw in a swear word, you know, like let's just see how far we can push it with Zombie Town a bit. And I don't know if it honestly, like it really is, we wrote it as a PG movie. It got a PG-13 rating, which was totally accidental. but with this another R.L. Stine movie, we really wanted to like do something more for older kids, like something like
Cool.
Scream.
Yeah.
And so I can't really talk about the movie that we've written a treatment for, just because it's kind of like there's some weird rights issues right now that we're waiting on, but there are other R.L. Stine properties that we've kind of thrown our names in the hat for.
That's amazing.
So we really, really want to do something that's for teens as opposed to kids again. We'll do anything for kids. I love entry level horror. Like I still watch it. I love watching it with my kids. But I think Peter's really craving that to like push the boundaries a bit because he couldn't do that with Zombie Town. We had to play it safe to some degree. There's no zombies biting anyone in this movie.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind. We made it work as best we could, but I would love to do one of his teen books. And there's one in particular that like really kind of hit home. It's kind of a mystery. We added a whole ghost element to it to like kind of give it more scares.
Sure.
Yeah. I wish I could say more. I hope in a year or two I can tell you what it is because there's one in particular that I really love a lot. Yeah.
Awesome. Is this project that you're talking about a product of doing Zombie Town, being able to kind of show your ability, and did this kind of come after that, or were you already working on it?
No, it came after. Like I literally talked to nobody but Peter when I signed on to Zombie Town. There was one producer who was basically like, "But Peter wants you. We gotta listen to Peter."
Yeah.
And so I think, as soon as we finished the script of Zombie Town, all of a sudden every actor was like saying, "Yeah, I'd like to do it. I'd like to do it." Dan, there was one scene in particular in Zombie Town where he said, I think I don't want to quote anyone in particular, but he had basically a few things. He said, "I want to do this movie, but I want to know more about this one scene." And it was one scene we wrote in particular he really liked, and it's in the movie. He wanted his kids to be zombies in it. And I forget what the other reason was, but I think the script resonated with people on some level. But it really is like a low budget Canadian movie, right? Like there was a lot of limitations Peter faced when shooting it. Shot in Sudbury. I think they did the best they could, and but the script I think really did connect with some people. Like the fact that even Chevy's wife was saying that she wanted him to do it, like because she liked the script, and so even before the movie was cut together, we started talks with producers that work with Stine about other properties we could adapt for them.
Yeah.
So that's
awesome.
Just throwing it out there. I like the interactive Goosebumps books that they came out with like years down the road, where you can say like when it said, "Oh, change the page to like 52" to kind of continue the story. So I think you guys should probably like create some like Netflix based movie where you can like get the kids interactive into
your own
it or
adventure
something.
book.
Yeah, so it'd be cool.
Nice.
Something like that.
That'd be amazing. They've done something like that, right? With the Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, because they had that on Netflix already. So I think that'd be cool for kids.
That would be great. Yeah.
So Zombie Town, that premiered at the theaters September 1st. Why was it in theaters just for one day?
Well, it should be a week. I think it's a week long engagement. It wasn't meant to be a theatrical film.
Okay.
I don't know how it happened. I think it's cool. Like I've never had a film premiere in a theater. No Malone went straight to Netflix. It's a Netflix movie. So I'm not sure, to be completely honest. I know I know it's good to get it in theater just to hype it for a streaming release.
Yeah.
In Canada, it got a really wide release, but I think because it is a Canadian film.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, because I was looking at the time listings and I had just seen it was just for that one day down here. And I was like, come on, I missed it. But it's going to be streaming on Hulu, you said, right? And
Paramount Plus? It was made for Hulu. Like that when I didn't know who it was made for until I was on set and someone said, "Oh, it's a Hulu movie." I was like, "Whoa, okay, cool." You learn. It's weird being a writer because you don't really know what's going on half the time. You're just like, okay, does the story work? Does the dialogue work? That's all I'm thinking about. But yeah, it's Hulu. It's a shame it only played one day in some places then. Yeah, some people are saying they couldn't get it like in LA, they couldn't see it in New York. So in Canada, it played everywhere. I was like shocked. So yeah,
I looked the other day, and our closest one was in Boston, which is about an hour away. So it's like, damn.
yeah, it's hard. I know. Like a friend of mine in New York said the closest was Rochester. So
Yeah.
Oh,
like
man.
road trip, man. You got to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
cool
one
to
of our
see, like,
theaters have. It's just Providence Place Mall usually gets all those films like that. So
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason is. I maybe someday I'll find out. I liked it because I got to take my kids to see it. And
Yeah.
um, and I hope some kids went, right? Like I don't know if having the PG-13 is good or bad. I think it's bad if you're an adult and you go and see this movie because you're gonna be like, this is like a kids movie.
Oh yeah.
What's going
Yeah.
on here? Um, and I know people have that expectation, which is it's kind of, you're hoping to see a Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase zombie movie, and then all of a sudden it's two kids starring in the movie. But yeah, yeah, that's that's about all I have to
It's
say.
funny because the trailer played in our theaters. So I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I saw it in a theater that it didn't play at this past weekend. So I was like, that's kind of weird, but all right. We'll wait till October 1st since we missed the screenings.
You know what? That's the best time to see it too, because it's set the
Exactly.
day before Halloween, and the movie it's a Halloween movie, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So Matthew Terrian designed the film's official poster. He goes by the name MT Illustrations on social media. He is definitely one of my favorite artists on Instagram. We've been following him for years now. We shared a lot of his work on our page. How did Matthew get involved with this project?
that was me. That was me,
Okay.
100%. I don't know if you've seen so there's different posters for each region. So there's like a poster for the US, and it's like these zombies. It's like a painted poster of zombies creeping towards a movie theater. And then there's this other poster, and it just has like headshots of the teen stars and Dan Aykroyd in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And as a fan, like I want like a painted cover, right?
Yeah.
I like growing up. I obviously listeners can't see it, but the Critters posters were like,
Yes.
I want painted covers. So or a painted poster. And so I contacted the producer and I said, hey John, my friend Matt, he does poster artwork and he does Blu-ray artwork. I know we don't have a big budget for marketing and stuff at this point, and like maybe we can find some money and get Matt on board. So the reason I went straight to Matt was he had just done 5 covers for me for my comic. And if you guys are familiar with his art, he does these portraits. They're like awesome, like impressionist style portraits of horror characters, and I've loved his art for years. A friend of mine, Jay Clark, he collects like all of it, and he has it on his walls and stuff. And so I was like, I someday need to work with that guy. And I was so thankful that he did the portraits for Armored. And then John was totally on board, the producer, to get him to do a poster, and I knew he would just knock it out of the park. So when just seeing, like, he was sending me little snippets like between like doing it, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah.
No, it was
Just trying
cool
to get you
because
excited.
yeah, because he had the poster in his Instagram story. I'm just like, oh shit. And I just shared it, and I had seen that's how I connected with you. So I was just like, all right, I gotta message him to see if he wants to come on the show and kind of like talk about this. So it would be cool. So
Thanks for connecting. Yeah, I actually
no
brought him
problem.
to the premiere. We did a premiere of the movie at in Toronto with some of the actors, and I
Okay.
brought Matt to it, and I knew he enjoyed it enough to see it a second time. So that's just something, guys.
Oh
right?
wow.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. He says that he rarely watches the movies he's working on twice. So there we go. Yeah.
There you go.
That's great.
Worked out.
Yeah.
Hey,
No, I want to work. Sorry.
sorry.
I was just gonna say I want to work with Matt on a lot more. Like he'll continue doing covers for me on Armored for sure, portraits. So
Yep.
yeah, Matt's a great guy.
Yeah, because on our social media page, like on Sundays, we used to share a lot of artists' work, and so I would sit there and reach out to him, say, "Hey man, this is some cool art. I want to definitely throw it up." And he just said, "Yeah, just as long as you tag me." And I'm like, "Oh, no problem." So we do. We always give shout outs to like up and coming artists, and so it was cool to see his career. You know, what I mean, he's been doing it for a long time. So what, 2021, that's when it started to take off a little bit more, where he started working on covers and stuff and Blu-rays for like companies and stuff. So it's cool just to see everyone kind of like move along, come along, and just their art just take it to the next level. So definitely shout out to you for reaching out to him to
Yeah.
work on stuff, giving artists work.
Yeah. I just had to have, I like he has that like Drew Struzan kind of like style.
Yeah,
It's like sort of, and I knew the director would love it too.
yeah.
Peter, once he saw it, he was just like, "Oh, this is what I've dreamed of, like poster artwork like this." So, yeah.
So, Mike, tell us where people can find you. What else, if you have anything else you want people to be looking out for? Obviously, the comic, um, all the good stuff. Tell them where to find everything.
Okay. What am I working on? Well, I'm working on Armored endlessly. Every day, it's just like I'm either writing more. My wife and I just finished a graphic novel it's strange. I'm in like a ghost phase right now where I'm just writing ghost things, which is really weird, but we just wrote a graphic novel, so we're going to be rolling with that soon. Peter and I are pitching some movies that I hope there's one in particular. It's an animated kids horror movie. So for anyone that's seen Gnome Alone, it isn't straight up horror, but it is influenced by a ton of horror movies. So I love seeing on Twitter the parents that like, get annoyed by it, but then go, wait a minute, this seems familiar, and they realize it's from how like we like have homages to House, to Ghostbusters, and Gnome Alone. But the movie we've written it's just like straight up animated horror for kids. So I really hope we can get that one off the ground. So yeah, that's what I have going on. But you can find me at Mike Schwartz Writes on Instagram, or the Mike Schwartz on X or Twitter. And for anyone that likes comics, I'm also on Instagram as 50 Cent Comic Collector. I found a lot of comic shops in my neighborhood that sell comics for 50 cents. So I started getting my collection back and just posting it on there, and seem to have accumulated a bit of a following on there. So
Very cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us and chatting about all this. I haven't seen No Malone. I've heard of it, but now I definitely want to go and watch No Malone. So I think I'm going to do that tonight, and just try to pick out all the references. So
see how many you can find. There's a few. It is, again, it's for a younger demo. So if you can find like a kid to watch it with, they get pretty addicted to it, which is really weird. Yeah, check it out. I hope you enjoyed it. It's short. It's like 75 minutes. So.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I just want to say, like, I do think it's so important that there's people doing what you're doing with like making gateway horror films. Like, not everybody can be making like the grossest and the goriest films. Like, other people need to also remember that, like, what got us into the genre in the first place. And like, it's great to see you kind of like continuing that tradition, so that your kids and other people's kids can also have like the love for the genre that we all have at this point. So I just wanted to say like that. I think that's really cool, and often not highlighted enough, that there's people working on this part of the genre as well, which I think is super important.
Yep.
Yeah, and just to add one more thing, that's like Armored. Armored is intended, it is an all ages kind of comic, where kids can read it. Probably not very young kids, but like adults could read it too. It's kind of like Stranger Things, right? It's a bit darker than Zombie Town, but like within the first few pages, like a kid dies in it, but there are monsters in it. It is goofy. There is some comedy in it. I like telling stories that kids can get into that have a bit of, a darker tone or a horrific tone to it, because that's what I gravitated towards. I want my kids to be able to find material that's accessible to them, but adults might be able to get some enjoyment out of as well. So yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you.
Keep it up, man. We're excited to eventually watch Zombie Town. There'll be a few more weeks, but
Yeah.
We'll check it out and we'll let you know.
And
We'll do a review up.
Yeah.
one last thing. I need to, if anyone is interested in Armored, it is up on Kickstarter right now till September.
Yes, that's what I was waiting for you to say.
Oh,
Yes.
thank
There you
you.
go.
I wish someone could just slap me over the face.
I was
check it
waiting
out.
for that. All right. So
No,
Armored on Kickstarter. Check it out and follow you on all your social media so they can, see the updates and all that stuff.
Yeah. Lots of different covers to choose from. Some more horrific ones. This is more our kid-friendly R.L. Stine cover, I call it, by Nick Patera.
Yep.
But Jay Lee provided a cover. So yeah. Go on over. Buy whatever. Buy a PDF. I don't care. Just read it. I just want people to read it. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Awesome.
Well,
all right.
thank you guys.
Mike, thank you so much. And everybody check out Zombie Town if you can this week in theaters. If you can't, October 1st on Hulu. Check out Armored. Check out the Kickstarter for perks. Follow Mike on social media and have yourself a great night.
Thanks guys.
everybody.
Take it easy.
Thank you so much, guys.